In the heart of Silicon Valley, my brother Michael has been missing for over 2 years. Known for his boldness and intellect, Michael was a revered tech journalist who often went undercover to expose corporate espionage and data breaches. His last known assignment was to infiltrate a secretive group involved in illegal data trading known as the Network. The last communication I received from him was an email with the subject, "For the attention of the champ," a nickname he gave me after I surpassed him in height. The email contained a journal detailing his time with the Network and a chilling message. "I don't think I'm going to make it back from this one, champ." According to his journal, Michael's investigation led him to a clandestine meeting in Austin, Texas. He was to pose as James Monroe, a data broker. The meeting was to take place on the outskirts of the city, in an area known for tech startups, but now eerily quiet. The group's leader, a man known only as the Architect, welcomed the participants to what he called the ultimate data heist. It was clear that the Network was planning something unprecedented, a cyber attack that could destabilize the global economy. As the night progressed, the group prepared for their operation, but Michael's journal entries became increasingly paranoid. He mentioned a feeling of being watched and a growing sense of dread about the group's true intentions. Suddenly, the journal entries stopped. The last few pages were frantic notes about a betrayal within the Network and a plan far more sinister than corporate theft. It seemed Michael had stumbled upon a plot that put his life in immediate danger. The email and journal are all I have to find my brother. I'm piecing together his last steps, hoping to uncover his whereabouts and bring him home. It was a typical night in the small town of Millfield, Ohio, where I worked as a cab driver. The conversation started with my colleague Jack during one of our usual late-night breaks at the local diner. "Man, I had the weirdest fare last night," Jack said, taking a drag from his cigarette. "Picked up this lady on Main Street and out of nowhere, she just disappeared from the back seat. I almost choked on my burger." "Disappeared? Come on, what do you mean?" "I mean just that," he insisted, his tone serious. "Stopped at a stop sign, heard the door unlock, and when I turned around, she was gone, vanished into thin air." I laughed it off, thinking it was just another fare dodger, but Jack was adamant. "No, I'm telling you, she was there 1 second, gone the next, and there was nowhere for her to run." Curious, I suggested checking the dashcam footage. We headed to his cab, and after some fiddling, we found the right timestamp. The video showed a quiet street, the occasional neon sign flickering. Then, a woman appeared, hailing the cab. "That's her!" Jack pointed. We watched as she got in and asked to be taken to the old cemetery on the outskirts of town. I raised an eyebrow. "The cemetery? At this hour?" "Yeah, she mentioned something about visiting a grave," Jack said, shrugging it off. The video continued, the woman asking to go straight at a crossroads instead of turning towards the cemetery. Then, at a red light, the door opened, and she was gone. Jack was right. There was no sign of her running away. It was as if she had evaporated. We agreed to keep an eye out for her, thinking she might be a local. The very next night, as I drove down the deserted streets, I saw her again. The same slow wave, the same mysterious air about her. I picked her up, and she asked to be taken to the local church. But then she changed her mind, asking to go straight instead. Before I knew it, my car was driving itself, taking us out of town and onto the highway. Panic set in as I realized I couldn't control the car. She asked me to stop when we saw a fallen telephone pole. And then, just like before, she was gone. I called Jack, but all he heard was static. I pulled over by the pole and found a car bumper in the ditch. It hit me then. We needed to call the cops. This strange encounter left us both shaken, wondering who she was and what had happened to her. But one thing was certain, our quiet nights in Millfield would never be the same again. In the heart of Appalachia, nestled among the dense forests of West Virginia, lies the forgotten town of Blackpine. It was here that my life took a turn into the inexplicable, a tale so bizarre I've only shared it in full with the detective, investigating my best friend's disappearance. High school was a blast for me, filled with friends and adventures. But the memory of that summer day, when my best friend Mike suggested we explore the abandoned coal town of Blackpine, casts a long shadow over those times. Blackpine was a relic, a ghost town since the coal industry's collapse. No legends haunted it, just the stark warning to stay away from the unstable mines. Yet Mike, with his adventurous spirit, convinced me to join him on a dirt bike journey there, promising pizza as a reward. The ride was smooth until we reached the town's outskirts. We bumped into our friend Anna, who was walking her dog. After a brief chat about meeting up later, we continued to Blackpine, with Mike leading the way, claiming he had studied the trails. The town was eerie, a collection of dilapidated houses and the remnants of the mining operation. Inside one of the houses, we found a family portrait, a haunting reminder of the lives once lived here. The town's history was marred by tragedy, with miners turning violent in their final days, driven mad by the loss of their livelihoods. Our exploration took a dark turn when Mike thought he saw something outside. Rushing out, we found nothing but overgrowth. Dismissing it, we headed to the mine entrance, ignoring the ominous feeling that hung in the air. Inside the mine, the atmosphere was oppressive, yet thrilling. We ventured deeper, finding a large room littered with trash and graffiti. Among the debris, Mike found a beer bottle he claimed belonged to his brother, Mark. Reluctantly, we continued downward, where the smell of dampness filled the air despite the dry rock. Suddenly, we heard a noise. Mike shone his flashlight down the path, revealing nothing, but the sound persisted, like running water. Without warning, Mike screamed for us to run. We fled, the sound of something inhuman chasing us. We barely escaped, leaving Mike's backpack snagged on the fence. We raced back to civilization, shaken and terrified. Mike couldn't explain what he saw, only that it was something terrible. That night, as we tried to relax, Mike's demeanor changed. He was angry, then despondent, a shadow of his usual self. In the early hours, I awoke to Mike shaking me, pointing to his second-story window, where a voice called out to him, each word sounding like a different person. Then chaos ensued. The window shattered, the room flooded with light, and a creature lunged at us. I blacked out, waking to a scene of horror. Mike's parents stood screaming at the blood-soaked wall. Mike was gone, presumed dead. The police suspected foul play, possibly by people we had seen in Blackpine. The detective showed me a map of the mine, indicating there was no fork where Mike claimed to have seen something. It was a straight path to darkness. I moved away, but the mystery of Blackpine and the loss of my best friend haunt me still. I've heard of others partying in the mine, unscathed. Why did Mike have to vanish? Why did I have to lose my best friend to the shadows of Blackpine? Man, I thought working the graveyard shift at Joe's Gas and Go in Nowhere, USA was gonna be a cakewalk. Just me, the humming of the fridges, and the occasional lost traveler. The pay wasn't anything to write home about, but it kept the lights on at my place. Then this old-timer rolled up in his beat-up Ford, looking like he'd just time-traveled from the 80s. He moseyed in around the witching hour, claiming he needed to gas up. Cool, no biggie. But then he started yammering on about the old Thompson estate down the way, telling me it was cursed or something. Said folks had a way of changing after they'd been there. I figured he was pulling my leg, trying to get a rise out of me with some campfire spook story. I just chuckled and waved him off. But not long after he split, everything went black. The lights blinked out, and the backup generator didn't kick in. I was about to light up the place with my phone when I caught a glimpse of something outside. There was this shape, just chilling by the door, tapping on the glass like it was trying to play some creepy tune on my nerves. I couldn't help thinking about the old man's tale. Was this some prank? I edged toward the door, half expecting the shadow to bolt, but it just hung around, tapping away. When I got close enough, it hit me. There was nothing there. Just me and my reflection, and a whole lot of nothing. The vibe was off after that. Even when the power came back, the place felt heavy, like the air was thicker. Curiosity got the better of me, and I did a little digging on the Thompson place. The stuff I found online was straight up bizarre. People vanishing, weird lights, the whole 9 yards. It was enough to make anyone think twice, but not me. I had to see it for myself. So there I was, the next day, cruising down to the Thompson estate. It was just as messed up as they said. Overgrown, falling apart, and just plain wrong. I didn't set foot inside. The heebie-jeebies were too real, and the old man's warning was bouncing around my skull. I booked it out of there, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd missed something. That night, the shadow was back, but it wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was like the darkness had taken a human shape, and it was talking to me, but not talking. It was in my head, telling me to hit the road and never look back. I quit the next morning. Couldn't deal with it, you know? I've tried to put it behind me, move on and all that jazz. But sometimes, when I drive by where the gas station used to be, I can't help but sneak a peek down that road to the Thompson place. It's like I'm waiting to see something peeking back. The whole thing feels like a nightmare I can't wake up from. I keep telling myself I dodged a bullet by not poking around more than I did. But there's a part of me that can't help but wonder what's really out there, lurking in the Thompson estate. Some things are better left alone, I guess. That's what I try to convince myself of anyway. In a quiet American town, I found myself drawn to an abandoned mansion that exuded an eerie aura. Despite the peaceful surroundings, the mansion at the end of Cedar Avenue seemed out of place, its windows like darkened eyes and its presence chilling the air. My nights were disturbed by faint music, and my curiosity led me to spy on the mansion. Inside, I saw shadowy figures in a candle-lit dance, their faces hidden behind masks. Among them was a figure who stood out, commanding the room with a golden mask. I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was happening. Conversations with my neighbor, Mrs. Harper, led nowhere. She warned me to stay away, but I couldn't resist the mystery. One night, I crept closer and witnessed the strange gathering again. The music was haunting, and the masked figures moved with an unnatural rhythm. The figure with the golden mask seemed to notice me, and fear took hold. I fled back home. Within few days, I left the town and moved to a small flat in New York.